Good afternoon. This is Steve Adam again. Welcome to today's PBCS webinar series hosted by eCapital Advisors. I will be introducing you to today's session. For those of you who are new to the series, welcome. eCapital Advisors is an award-winning consultancy in areas of data management, advisory services, business intelligence, cloud applications, and solutions for the Office of Finance. Our practice focuses on Hyperion Enterprise Performance Management and Oracle's Business Intelligence. In addition to our strategic consulting and system implementation services, eCapital Advisors offers prepackaged starter programs such as our Hyperion Upgrade Acceleration Program and our Cloud Enablement Kit. Feel free to reach out via our website. We can help answer any questions that you may have. For today's webinar, celebrating 6 more weeks of winter, we're joined by Bob Ussett and Ryan Kohler. These two have taken the time to review our latest updates so that you don't have to. Bob is a senior management consultant and implementation expert who has over 6 years of working Oracle Hyperion implementation experience. During his time, he's delivered several Hyperion implementations from a variety of industries, including healthcare, financial services, retail, and consumer products. Ryan joins us, and he's successfully implemented a variety of complex allocation models, driver-based strategic forecasting and budgeting systems, as well as operation reporting solutions. Over the last 7 years, he's worked in supply chain, healthcare, and manufacturing industries, providing S-based planning, FDME, and other Oracle technology solutions to some of North America's most innovative companies. Moving forward, I'll now hand it off to Bob and Ryan for February's updates.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be back with everybody. I know we did not have a January update due to Oracle pushing it, so it's good to be back here for the February release. As Steve mentioned, just as a friendly reminder, we will continue to deliver our PBCS monthly update webinars on a monthly basis when the releases are available. So we'll be able to check out the new features and test those for you so you don't have to. Before we get going on the February release and some of the new features and enhancements that have been implemented this month, we wanted to take a quick minute to follow up on questions that we had in our last session, which was in December, around some questions that we promised some investigation on and some follow-up on. So the first one was retention history of user activity logs. And so we did do some additional research on that, and the retention history is 2 months on those activity logs. So 2 months, just some important information there to know. We also got some questions on predictive planning stability versus the on-premise predictive planning module that can be installed via SmartView. The predictive planning is still much more stable via the web on PBCS through our additional testing here the last month and a half. So we're happy to report we have not had any performance issues, no crashing, so very good performance and reliability standards so far there. The third question here is a follow-up around the standard interface availability. As we know, in about a year now, the standard interface will go away, and Oracle will be pushing everybody to the simplified interface, which is a good thing, we think. So we always push all of our users and clients to the simplified interface anyways. But around the standard interface availability, once it is discontinued, we still don't have a whole lot of information on exactly what that means. We're kind of expecting it to be similar to how Oracle has sunset some past features with on-prem, so it'll probably still be available for a little bit. They just will no longer enhance it or quote-unquote support it. So not a big update there. The last piece here is we just wanted to provide some additional clarification on the explanation that we received from Oracle around why the January release was delayed. So the primary reason for that delay was due to SmartView integration with all of the new Fusion products. So they had some extreme bugs with that, and so they had to push the entire release. So that's the first time we've seen that happen where a release that was scheduled was actually pushed. So we're hoping that that's not a trend to follow. So anyways, just some quick updates on some of the follow-up questions that we had in the December update. And now we'll move forward with the February release. So in today's webinar, we're going to tell you what PBCS is again, just as a quick review for those of you who may be new to our sessions. Obviously PBCS is a cloud product that Oracle delivers for their clients. And it's really giving you the state-of-the-art budgeting and forecasting technology on a cloud scale. So, really good simplified interface, awesome reporting capabilities, data input as well as dashboarding as well. So, again, PBCS really providing opportunity for maybe clients that wouldn't be considering an Oracle solution in the past due to price and sustainability to get it up to the cloud quickly. Now you have some of these options for you available. So now let's get into some of the features that were included in the February release. Here's our nice handy release readiness guide for February. Same table of contents laid out for us. A nice PDF that's sent out. We do encourage those of you who are getting those emails who are already a PBCS customer. It's always good to review those either before or after you attend these webinars, just kind of helps provide some additional context around them. So if we go into the first new feature here, valid intersections with attributes. So valid intersections themselves, this is not a new feature. What they have done with this release is they have expanded valid intersections to be compatible with attribute dimensions as well. So just as a quick recap of what valid intersections are, you can access them through the simplified interface by going to application, valid intersections, and then you have to set a anchor dimension first, which is really the primary driver of your definitions, and then you can add additional dimensions to that rule itself. So now with this update, you can also add attribute dimensions. So in a nutshell, what this is really doing for you is it's allowing the system administrator to set up an application with maintenance in mind here. So by defining the appropriate valid intersections, you can really control what an end user sees, and it can also really enhance the end user experience here. And so you can imagine if you do have multiple attribute dimensions, you can really customize the valid intersections that can become available in an application. So really sky's the limit here with kind of enhancing your maintenance schedule on what an end user can see and load data to. So this, coupled with kind of a good security model, is a really good one-two punch for creating an application that's sustainable moving forward. So these last few screenshots here, just some more screenshots from the interface itself. One thing I did want to mention, just through some of my testing, is I have the add rule and add dimension buttons in kind of a large screenshot there. Make sure you're able to find those and you click on those. Once you define your anchor dimension and select your secondary dimensions as well, you won't be able to actually define the point of view of those dimensions unless you add the rule. So that adding rule button is important to really define your valid intersections. So just wanted to point that out. And then once you add the rule, that's where you're able to pull up that select members interface and really get into kind of customizing what you want to see. Our next feature that has been implemented with the February release actually pertains to workflow, and it's around displaying the alias instead of the member name for approvals submissions. So, those of you who don't know, workflow is an option that's available through PBCS that really allows you to kind of track your budgeting and forecasting processes and where they're at within ownership and approval layers within your organization. So in the past, you would only be able to see planning units available to you as member names. So let's say you wanted to track your workflow process through departments. Maybe you have 10 departments rolling into an HR function, 10 departments rolling into a finance function, rolling into a total departments bucket here. In the past, you would only be able to see the department name. So maybe your member names are D1000 or D2000, but maybe you have an alias that describes what that specific department is actually doing within that function. Now within the workflow process, you can actually see the aliases of those as well, which can really enhance the end user experience. It's very easy to enable this. You can actually just go into your application settings here, and then there's a checkbox for display alias. So this is going to be a new checkbox under the approvals section of application settings. One thing I think that's important to point out is when we're talking about application defaults here, the default for this is still going to be no. So not necessarily sure I agree with that, as I think we should probably be enabling the aliases. I think it makes for a little bit better of a end user experience. But what you can do here is you can actually change the current application defaults here under system settings and defaults, and go to that approvals options section and change the show approval units as aliases option to yes, and then just instruct all of your end users to enable their custom settings to be the application defaults, and that will ensure then that everyone's seeing the aliases throughout the workflow process. You might also ask, if there's certain departments in this example that don't have aliases, what would it default to? It'll still default back to the member name, so it's not going to break the workflow process if you don't have an alias for a certain piece of that planning unit, for example. So some good enhancements overall here to the workflow process that we're excited about. This next piece, a little bit smaller of an enhancement, really more from a development perspective. As we know, you can now access financial reporting Web Studio through the web instead of a hard client install. So in the past, if you were doing development in the Web Reporting Studio and you were defining grids and data points, if there was supporting details or cell comments or things of that nature, within an inherent cell, you wouldn't know about it while you're doing your development. What they've done for us now is they've actually basically are giving you indicators now within the development cycle. So you would actually see like a highlighted red box if a cell actually had cell comments there or supporting details, similar to how a data form would look in a live environment. So this isn't a huge enhancement, but just kind of something nice to know, from a development standpoint here. So a pretty small change overall, but a good one to kind of keep things in sync throughout the development to usage cycle there. The next piece, got to be honest with you, I did some testing on this. Not a ton of information here on the release schedule, but it was described to us as planning formulas, planning formula expressions now available to us in Calc Manager. I was kind of assuming that this would be, maybe the planning formula expressions that you can leverage within a data form. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's kind of a weird syntax similar to Excel, but a little bit different and kind of fidgety. I was kind of assuming it would be something along those lines. Honestly, I was unable to find any enhancements to Calc Manager around any of the formula expressions. Can't find any new functions. Can't find any new objects here. So we have a ticket out to Oracle just asking for more information on exactly what was included with this update. And we will certainly share with you as we learn more of what exactly this enhancement meant. So just got to be honest with you here, didn't really find anything implemented as to what the PDF document explained. The next piece here, which is good to know, is there is a new EPM Automate utility as well as a new function here. So first step, those of you who are using EPM Automate within your environment, make sure to download the new version that is out so that you can have all the functionality for these newer versions available to you and your organization. And this specific download will allow you to leverage a new function that will help you with data recovery and data backups. And the function itself is import snapshot. So on a nightly basis, whether you know it or not, your application is being backed up via the Oracle data center. And you can always go back and kind of revert back to a prior date for your system. Say something happened during an important forecast cycle or something like that, where you had extreme data loss or maybe some metadata updates that you pushed through didn't quite go as planned and you needed to revert back. You can now do this with EPM Automate, and there's the function import snapshot, and you kind of see the syntax there. So all this stuff you can already do today, manually, but this is really helping you kind of automate that process more and more. So, not a huge update in itself, but one thing that we do like through our testing is we have found that Oracle has continued to update the EPM Automate utility. So they're clearly focused and dedicated to it. So we want to continue to leverage that and do full testing for our clients and for our future projects as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Bob for some of the additional features. Bob?
Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, so piggybacking right off what Ryan was just talking about with the snapshot utility, there's another new EPM Automate function available that will download those activity reports. I know Ryan touched on it earlier. We covered it in December as well. So again, those activity reports are those detailed CSV files that basically tell you everything a user did as they're clicking through your system. Excuse me, what EPM Automate can now do is it can actually download those files for you. You could use EPM Automate to kind of save them off in a location. So again, if you want to go back further than the 2 months, which is the retention history, you could use this function to kind of save off that information and store it in a location where the information would not get purged. So the next function we have here is really just a label change. There's really no change to the system whatsoever. Basically what's happening is if you go look in your web forms and you can run business rules on open a form, you can run them on save. Generally that's all you're really ever going to set up. They basically just change that label to say run before load, and run after save. And that, again, no functionality change, just a label difference, and that's really all that feature is covering there. The next two features here are more integrations within other cloud products. So, most of these features that we talk about, or all these features we talk about, are very specific to the planning and budgeting cloud service, very specific for PBCS. So, we have two different release notes here that actually talk about how these systems that we own and use today are actually integrating with other Oracle cloud products, which really can be powerful as we talk about some of this here. So this first one for this single sign-on. So I know on a previous webinar in another month we've talked about how you can set up authentication to maybe use your company or organization's IDs to log in using the SAML process. This process now also integrates with the Oracle Fusion Cloud product. So without getting into too much detail with it, is basically that's another suite that Oracle has to maintain. If you do a little research on it, basically what they say is it's supply chain, everything's financials. There's, just different sets of modeling that will fit different business and the different functions that those businesses serve. So, again, the details on what that means is a different topic for another conversation, but, the important call out here is Oracle is making a conceded effort to make it so you are going to be able to have one central login process for all the different Oracle Cloud products. So, again, if your organization is looking to expand into other areas, it can simplify the process to do some of that, but with this, again, this single sign-on into Oracle Fusion, that is what this is addressing, is just a single sign-on process for multiple cloud products here. So with this next one, which is another integration into another cloud product, so this human capital management tool, this again is it's a totally separate Oracle product that they deliver, and it's targeted very much specifically for your HR organization. So it's going to there'll be some crossover for like employee level planning that we may do in our planning and budgeting cloud service, such as an employee salary is going to be in there, maybe merit-based information is going to be stored in there and things like that, but there's also going to be a lot more detail like employee performance and possible promotion opportunities or things like that, something that we would never want to maintain and plan in our financial workforce process. But there is now integration to pull some of that information that is shared. So again, and I know they are listed on in the release notes here, like, you could maintain your employee names only in human capital management. You can maintain your employee salaries only in human capital management. And you can now use data management, which is a free feature that comes with PBCS when you purchase it. And basically you can set up a connection between this HCM and your workforce model if you have it enabled in the enterprise PBCS option. And you can just transfer data from one model into the other. So again, big benefit to that. You're no longer maintaining employee and salary information in multiple places. We're now able to just easily and quickly share information between models. So again, these two features, I think a big takeaway for us as we're looking at these Oracle products is how they're clearly working to integrate them together to bring, whether it be login information or planning processes, and bring them directly to the people that are responsible for those type of activities. So the last feature we'll talk about here is there is a new version of SmartView available for us. So I'm making an educated guess here, but I would assume that the reason that we have a new SmartView version available for us is because SmartView is having troubles integrating with the Fusion applications as part of the hold of the release for last month. So along with that, what is being implemented through SmartView is really, you probably wouldn't notice it unless you dig into some of these release notes. So, overall, your SmartView experience is not going to change. It's still the late great SmartView that we've all known to love here. But there are different things. So that they've incorporated new HSP functions. There's some things with smart forms that have been enabled and things like that. But overall, we're impacted by the SmartView change because other products are as well, and that's the biggest reason for the change. So with SmartView and with the new EPM Automate Utility, you can download both of these tools directly from that main central dashboard that we hit every day when we log in. So you just click that arrow by your name and you click the downloads, and there will be a list of different products that you are able to download. You simply click on those and it will either prompt you to save or run to install, but you're able to get all the latest and greatest rules, EPM Automate and SmartView right there from that centralized dashboard. So with that, that really wraps up the releases for February, and we'll get into some of the support changes here. So I know we talked about this last month. Still think it's worth calling out that standard interface is being supported through the end of this year. I know we're probably going to have a bullet on this every month. This is a big deal. So people that are familiar with on-prem planning are familiar with that simplified interface. The way you get to modify a form or to create a business rule is very different from the clicks you make through the simplified interface. No different. You can still do everything you could do there. It's just the way to execute is going to be different. So again, if you're not familiar with the simplified interface, do yourself a favor, start getting familiar with it, because this is going to be the future at the end of this year. So, and then finally, I know we've been reporting on this for several months here as well. The desktop reporting studio client is gone in May. So through our testing, we found that you can pretty much do, if not everything, do through the web version that you have in the desktop client. But again, the look and feel will be slightly different than what it is in this desktop version. So again, we're coming really close to the end point here. I would highly recommend getting familiar with what the web studio looks like, so when the end of that support comes, you're not scrambling trying to figure out how to modify your FR reports. So that wraps up the February features we have in our webinar. We urge you, log in next month, find out, help us, allow us to tell you what these changes are so you don't have to look them up yourself, and take the time and be ready for that implementation when it's going to be applied to your production environment. And before we get to questions, I also just want to say we are going to start doing more targeted webinars for maybe more specific features that are available in PBCS as they're new, or maybe we thought, maybe the features have been around for a while and we feel like it's worthwhile to highlight it. Maybe we're getting a lot of questions from clients or possible clients, and our plan here upcoming is to do a detailed webinar on predictive planning and sandboxing. So predictive planning is something I believe we covered in December. I believe that's when it was released. And sandboxing has been around since the middle of last year as well. But we're going to highlight these features, try to give some use cases, how it could help your organization, give some tips and tricks on how to actually implement some of these features. But these will be webinars above and beyond our monthly webinar. So if, as we're laying these out, we'll make sure to call them out in this forum as well to make sure when to join if you have any, if you want any more detail on some of this functionality. So with that, I thank everyone for their time, taking some time out of their day to listen to us talk about these features, and we'll open it up to questions.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. At this point in our session, we'll open up the forum to any questions. We did have a couple roll in. The first question we have is, we've talked to our Oracle rep a couple of times, and we've heard them talk about enterprise planning and budgeting service. Is this a different product?
Sure, that's a good question. So it's a different license, but essentially the same product, if you will. So a lot of the functionality will be very similar. I think with EPBCS, what you're going to get is you're going to get pre-built modules. For example, a workforce model or a CapEx module. So if you choose to enable those, they would come with pre-built calculations, data forms, all that good stuff. However, they still allow the ability and the flexibility to customize somewhat as well. So I think it's the same overall product suite, just an enhanced license, if you will. Not sure, Bob, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think we have talked about enterprise again in a previous month, and what it is. You also get things like different plan types, different reporting. You get additional reporting plan types and things like that. And I'll echo Ryan's sentiment here. It's essentially the same product as PBCS. You're basically you have the opportunity to implement out-of-box modeling, which can be very helpful for organizations trying to start up a process quickly as well.
All right. Another question that came in is, where can we get the latest SmartView and EPM Automate files?
Yeah, so those files, and I know I touched on it on a previous slide, they're really easy to get. Again, you get them right from your dashboard. There's a drop-down right next to your name. So here we have the slide back up. You just click that. You click Downloads. It comes up right there. There's SmartViews on there. EPM Automate's on there. There's a few more tools that I can't think of right now, but anything you need from a client, like desktop standpoint or anything like that, you can download all of those different products right here from that main login screen when you log into the system.
Perfect. And another question we had roll in is, can we enable predictive planning and sandboxing in our existing applications today?
Good question. So from a predictive planning standpoint, you can without any application changes. I believe, though, from a sandboxing standpoint, you have to enable that upon application creation. So it's actually a checkbox within the wizard where you actually have to check that and say, I want to enable sandboxing in order to leverage that functionality. I will say we've done a lot of testing with that. It's not very difficult if you had to recreate the application to enable that. So we actually have been doing quite a bit of testing there. What's the workload on transitioning an application quickly to make sure you can enable sandboxing, for example. I don't know, Bob, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think there's always application considerations you're going to have for either one of these things. So whether it be slight form tweaks to fully leverage the feature to its fullest potential, there's going to be overhead on things like that. I think, again, predictive planning, you could really make that decision whenever. Sandboxing is good to make up front, but we do have tricks at eCapital to enable that after the fact for relatively little to no cost as well. I think we're going to have a session on this, and I highly recommend, whoever asked that question or anyone that is interested in these features, join, because that is exactly the type of question that we will make sure to address in detail, and make sure that when you walk away from that webinar, you're really going to be as close to an expert as you can be after an hour within these tool sets. So highly recommend, joining for that webinar as well.
Yeah, I would advocate for that as well. I think some of the demo content that we're putting together is very cool. Gives you a much deeper dive into some of this nice functionality that can really help your organization out.
Perfect. Thank you. That actually concludes our Q&A portion of the event. So if you want to learn more about the capabilities of Oracle's Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service or our Cloud Enablement Kit, please do feel free to reach out through our website. There are also, you can find down the broken down videos of the main points discussed in our past webinars. We also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And that does conclude our webinar today. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Bob and Mike for